Hello, everybody. It's Zach with Talk of Sinners again, and I just wanted to go ahead and get started with the message that's on my mind. Everybody remembers the Titanic in 1914 when it had sank. Now, the interesting thing about the Titanic was there were two other ships within the vicinity. The Californian being the closest to the Titanic, which could have aided the Titanic and potentially saved more people, but there are reasons and there are theories and there's this and that for the reason that they did not respond to the Titanic's calls in their warning signs after they hit the iceberg. But the point being is that the Titanic hit the iceberg in the middle of the night, and they sent out warning flares and radio signals and everything that was protocol, everything they were supposed to do. But the Californian ship didn't do anything until the next morning. And after that, while they still helped, the main damage had been done. So I was thinking, a scary thought, right? But I was thinking, how do we measure up? How does society compare? How do we measure up with that of the Word of God? When we're given, when we see that signal, when we see that flare shot, or when we see that, or when we hear that radio signal coming through, do we run from the signal? Do we run towards things that are comfortable now, but will be detrimental in the long run? Or do we go to that flare? Do we go to that signal, and do we listen to it so we can make a difference, save ourselves and also save others? And do we attract ourselves to that, or do we run from it because it's easier? Because sometimes the flare might come in the middle of the night, and we just want to go to sleep because it's what's easier to do. So that was interesting. It was very interesting to me to see that while they did everything protocol, well, except for hit the iceberg. I'm sure that wasn't in the protocol, but they hit the iceberg in the middle of the night, and they sent out flares and everything. And the Californian, and I don't remember the name of the other ship, but they saw the flares, they saw the radio signals, but at any rate, they did not respond. So the sign was there, and they didn't respond. More people died than what should have died, in my opinion. The point I'm trying to get across, aside from that, is God has a vision for our lives. We're sent these flares. We're sent these dreams, experiences, circumstances, people in our lives, our relationships. And sometimes the flare or the circumstance or the relationship, whatever it may be, can be right in front of us, so bright and so obvious, but yet we run towards things that are selfish or things that are worldly. We run towards maybe what's closer, what's more easily appealing to our eye. We try to get a few more hours of sleep, and we seem to try to route around anything but the plan that God has for our lives. Now, over and over and over again, I have failed God, and I will be the first to admit that I have failed Jesus. I have failed friends, I have failed family, I have failed myself, but most importantly, I have failed the Creator of the universe. And, according to the Bible, we all have. Not to get into my details specific, but, there are several times where I felt I was on top of Mount Everest, and I was just going to town, and everything was awesome. Now, here's the thing about that: when you are on that mountain, and it's built on worldly things such as possessions, or circumstances, or relationships, everything we mentioned. If you're on top of a mountain and you feel like you're scaling that mountain and you're just going higher and higher and higher, when you have these worldly things, eventually you're going to plateau. And after you plateau, God will push you off the cliff and say, get back on the level that you belong at, because where you've climbed has not been with my assistance, it's been with the world's assistance, and that's not good. So when you pray for God to humble you, such as King David did in the book of Psalms, you can read all about that. He says, Lord, if there's any fault in me, point it out so that I can better serve you. See, God will push you off of that plateau. I mean, He'll catch you, but He'll push you to humble you. And when He does that, yeah, it sucks, but it's for the benefit of Him. He's molding you into the image of Christ. You see, in Acts 9, Saul, which went on to be Paul, and wrote many letters to the 7 churches, and he did many things of proclaiming the gospel, but Saul was persecuting Christians. He was killing Christians, aiding in the killing of Christians, and he was doing all of these things. And he's just walking one day, and God shows up and knocks him to the ground. And the presence of God was so strong that Paul, the Bible goes on later to tell us in Acts, that Paul was blinded for a few days, I guess, because this light of God was so strong and so powerful, and it completely changed Paul's life. When Paul saw his flare, when Paul heard his radio signal, it was so obvious, it was right in front of him. God sent it and it blinded him for a couple of days. Now, after that, when Paul was knocked off of his plateau, he later went on to preach the gospel to the entire world. He was imprisoned and martyred for his faith. You see, we need to come face to face with God and start listening to Him, and stop ignoring it. When we come face to face with God, whether it's in a positive situation or a negative situation, we need to listen to Him, and we need to understand that He's come to save us. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still, my heart, and know that I am God." Sometimes we need to be still and just know that wherever we are, God is coming to the rescue. You see, unlike the Californian, we're not going to have to worry about if anyone is coming to save us, but the fact that they already have. God has already came to save us, and the interesting thing is when we have that faith and when we listen, just like Paul, when we listen to what God is saying, He comes and He saves us, and He uses us. He has a plan for our lives. As everyone knows the verse, Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know I have the plans for you." But here's the thing. We know that God's coming to save us. We know that He has already saved us. But the more we run away from the situation, or the more we avoid the situation, the more we avoid running to the flares, the more we close our ears to the radio signals, the more we do this, the less potential we have. We'll never reach our full potential, I guess is a better way to say it. We'll never reach our full potential in what God has planned in store for us while we're doing that. We need to run to run to what He's called us to do. And if you don't know what He's called you to do, just start running, because He'll send it to you. God will talk to you. So that's all I got. Thanks for listening, and I think I'm almost on my 80th post, so it's just crazy that God has been able to ignite with me this fire, this desire to learn more and more and more. So, at any rate, thanks a lot, and I'll catch you next time.